Oral question, Baroness Pidgeon.
I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, the European Union's entry-exit system, EES, is now expected to be introduced in October 2025, with checks taking place on UK soil at the juxtaposed controls, the Port of Dover, at Eurotunnel and Eurostar. The Government continues to work closely with the authorities at those three places and the French authorities to ensure that EES is implemented successfully. In respect of freight, over 80% of HGV journeys from Britain to the EU are undertaken by foreign registered vehicles. EU hauliers will not be required to complete EES checks.
I'd like to thank the Minister for his answer, but my Lords, given the significant risk to UK exports, particularly just-in-time produce, what work is the Government doing with the French authorities and the European Commission to ensure pre-registration systems are in place ahead of implementation to alleviate congestion and support smoother freight flows?
So, of course, the primary aim of government has to be to ensure that the necessary infrastructure is in place at juxtaposed portals ahead of the implementation of the system. And because EES is an EU-wide system, although the EU have expressed a desire to explore pre-registration, and we continue to work with European colleagues to encourage the development and adoption of an app, it's still in the early stages and won't be available at the start of implementation. However, even if there were an app, passengers would still need to attend a kiosk booth or tablet to enrol biometrics. But of course, the app would reduce the time taken for individuals to undertake full EES checks at the border, so would be very desirable. So we're urging them as hard as we can.
Is the noble lord aware that there's a facility at Stansted Airport that takes live racehorses currently, exporting them to the rest of Europe and further afield? For good reason, that has been requisitioned for other purposes, but there could be a period of time where these racehorses will not be able to move from East Anglia to the rest of Europe. Would he use his good offices to investigate this, to make sure that there's a comparable facility without any delay between expediting flights of these live racehorses, which brings much joy as well as is good for the East Anglian economy?
I'm afraid it's a revelation to me that there's such a facility at Stansted, but now I know, I will go away and look at the Noble Baroness's remarks and see what can be done.
My Lords, Operation Brock causes absolute havoc around Kent, and the renewed and enhanced passport restrictions are inevitably going to cause delays. So can the Noble Lord the Minister assure us that Operation Brock will not become a regular feature of life in that part of Kent?
Of course, one has to be very sympathetic with the considerable disruption that Brock causes. The government, since it took office, has been thinking about what else can be done. My department has signed a contract with Liddon Hill Racetrack to be a contingency site for the Kent and Medway Resilience Forum to incorporate into their traffic management plans, and we're also in negotiations with another site. But the primary thing that needs to happen is that the Port of Dover needs to finish its facility at Dover Western Docks. That was facilitated by an early action of this government. The work finally started in March 2025, and it's in progress to be finished by the 1st of November, and it's monitored by my department and the Home Office weekly and by ministers on a monthly basis.
My Lords, will the government still require incoming freight vehicles to call at a place called Ashford, Sevington, to be checked, or is that going to be removed? Because at the moment, all incoming vehicles are supposed to be checked at Sevington, but half of them, of course, just drive by up the motorway and never seen again.
I thank my noble friend. I'd have to take some advice about how that works. It's not immediately apparent that it's connected with the EES system, but I will go away and answer his question in writing.
My Lords, following the concerns expressed about Operation Brock, it's worth recalling that the EU's phased introduction of EES allows for temporary suspension at specific border points in the event of high traffic. So given that the UK's traffic monitoring will give us advance notice of building problems at the juxtaposed borders in Dover and Folkestone, what assurance can the Minister give us that the government has sought to ensure that the French border officials will accept and use our traffic information when making a decision to suspend EES?
So the Noble Lord is quite correct. There is considerable flexibility, certainly in the early days of this scheme, to suspend it for the benefit of traffic getting through. I think the juxtaposition of the French and the British border controls is very helpful in that respect, and with the current better relationship with the French government, I know that there is an intention both at the highest level and at a working level to do precisely what the Noble Lord says, so that actually the French can apply this flexibility at the right times for the benefit of the traffic going through the ports and Eurotunnel.
My Lords, on the subject of the movement of trucks across EU borders, what developments, if any, have there been on sorting out the urgent question of cabotage for touring musicians, which the Minister's Department should be taking a keen interest in?
I'm absolutely sure that my department are taking a keen interest in it. Again, it's not immediately connected with the European entry and exit system, but I'd be very happy to write to the Noble Lord and say what the progress is.
My Lords, given the Channel Tunnel has quite a lot of capacity, what consideration has the government given to the increased use of the tunnel for rail freight? And will the government's strategy for increasing rail freight in this country include a proposal along those lines?
Noble Lord raises an excellent point, and in fact the government is very active. I am very active in encouraging more freight through the tunnel, and indeed more railway freight generally. And of course the Noble Lord will know in the discussions about the passenger, the public ownership bill, and subsequently that the government intends to give Great British Railways a target to increase rail freight. In the particular respect of the use of Eurotunnel, both Eurotunnel itself and HS1 have the facility to discount track access charges for new freight, and I encourage regularly when I meet the freight community, as I do probably more often actually than the passenger operators, at least as a group, I unfailingly remind them of this in order that we can use the surplus capacity that the Noble Lord refers to.
My Lords, will the Noble Lord the Minister recognise that while most of this discussion has related to the south of England, the impact of these changes is at least as significant on the other bits of England, not least the north of England, because businesses up there are at least as equivalently affected by the changes that may take place?
Yeah.
Indeed, I think we're very mindful of the fact that done inelegantly with the wrong result, this could affect business generally across the country and not merely in the south of England. It's the three juxtaposed controls are in the south of England, but they affect travellers and freight from all over the country. So we're very mindful of the effect on the economy as a whole. That's why the government has worked so hard since it took office, both to check that the arrangements in these places are adequate and there's more capacity, and also in the collaboration with the European Union so that their end of this works as well as ours will.
Would the Noble Lord the Minister give consideration perhaps at exploring the viability of processing and charging facilities on the M20 in the Ashford area away from the coast at Folkestone, Dover and Thanet in order to ameliorate the problem with congestion on the coast?
I thank the Noble Lord for his suggestion. Of course, the way in which the juxtaposed portals work is that you have to have designated areas which are under the control of other sovereign nations than ours. and that would be quite that would always require a lot of attention. The site in the Dover Western Docks has been chosen after the government took action to enable it to happen, and we feel confident at the moment, firstly, that it will work, and secondly, that the authorities at Dover can sort out the difference between EU hauliers who don't need to go through these checks and UK ones, Great Britain, hauliers from Great Britain that do. But it will, of course, depend on the dexterity of the port of Dover, and they need to work hard to maintain their own business. I think what the Noble Lord suggests is clever, but it would take a lot of doing, and actually the arrangements that we are putting in place have to be there by the autumn.